Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and I'm back. Well, nothing changed on your end. Like, we had videos all throughout the week, but if you watched my Concord video, you know that I was out in Cali this week. I played Dragon Age the Veilguard early. I'll have more thoughts to share on that on September 19th. And yeah, I've been in Cali a lot lately for a lot of different work trips. And as someone who's from the Northeast and has been born and raised there their entire life, I can only handle so much West Coast. So it's really nice to be home and sitting down in this chair, making some videos again. And so yeah, today we're talking about Starfield Shattered Space because we have some brand new information, both from Bethesda Game Studios, but also during Gamescom, there were some extensive video, hands-off previews of the expansion that give us a lot more information on what's going on there. And more, as we already assumed, but it's just getting further confirmed, this is going to be the hopefully ideal response to a lot of the major problems that Starfield had. In particular, the exploration woes. I thought this was a good time to do this video because we just did our 1 year later retrospective of Starfield, which is up right now. If you want to go ahead and check that out, I'll have it linked down below. It's really interesting to see how the game has moved into a more 50-50 split, where I felt like generally it was pretty disliked before that. So I wonder if some people are enjoying the updates more than, say, myself. And I'm really curious to see how Bethesda continues to update the game moving forward. So yeah, we talk about all of that and more in that video if you want to check it out down below. But let's get on with the news update. And before anything else, a quick word from today's sponsor. If you're like me, and I know many of you are when it comes to this genre, you love turn-based, you love strategy, I want to put Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus on your radar. You're going to bring some of the universe's most powerful warriors to lightning-fast tactical skirmishes where you're in full control and only your tactics can actually deliver victory. You're going to expand your collection across tons of factions, bringing you new possibilities and combat, and also new players and grizzled fans of the Warhammer universe will find challenges as they're going to progress through PvE campaigns, PvP, live events, guild raids, and so much more. And they're always updating it. Right now, I want to tell you about the launch of the Blood Angels faction. Blood Angels are one of the founding legions of the Space Marines, and this faction's heroes adorn Gothic facades and are known for their Gothic cultural similarities, making them familiar to players and also standing out from other factions in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. And this lineup right now includes Mataneo and Mephiston. That's not the only faction available here in Tacticus. In fact, there's over 17 available, so even if the Blood Angels don't light your fire, there are plenty who I definitely think will. You also have over 70 champions to add to your roster, so all the tactical options and combat are going to expand for you, and best of all, it's free. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description down below, check out Warhammer 40,000 Tacticus, and shout out to them for sponsoring today's video. So things open up here with the Bethesda Game Studios Twitter account posting an update for the 1 year anniversary of Starfield, saying thank you to the millions of players who have made the settled systems their home and helped make an incredible first year for Starfield. We have much more coming, beginning with our first story expansion, Shattered Space, releasing September 30th. Here's a bit of what you can expect when Shattered Space launches. With over 50 new locations to explore across Varun Kai, new grenades to craft that stem from organic material you gather and its gross, formidable new enemies, be on your guard for redeemed and vortex horrors. We'll talk about the latter in just a moment. And you haven't seen the last of Zealots, Spacers, or the Crimson Fleet. As you explore the planet, be on the lookout for those taking advantage of the situation. Stay tuned, we'll share more about Starfield's Shattered Space soon. So the real standout here is the 50 locations. That is extremely exciting, especially when I spoke to Todd, hearing how it was more Far Harbor-like. That makes it also incredibly exciting, but this is what Starfield was really missing, was that level of exploration where you could just land on a planet and see so many different spots throughout it. And to know that there's going to be over 50 here means we should be able to sink a decent amount of time into this expansion. For comparison, according to the Fallout Wiki, Far Harbor had 51 areas, so yeah, it seems right in that ballpark, which I think can mean that we can expect a level of length similar to Far Harbor in that 20-hour pocket, which sounds just right for me, especially in a very busy fall holiday gaming period. I think that's going to be a nice amount of gameplay time. We don't know for sure yet. They also talk about new grenades. I'm curious what those are going to end up being. But the last bit kind of caught my attention too, in that the Zealots, Spacers, and Crimson Fleet are going to be here on this planet as well. So a lot of other factions are being drawn to what's happening here, or maybe they're stumbling here. I don't quite know the plot yet, although we have very scarce details thanks to a preview we're going to get into in a moment. But knowing the Crimson Fleet's going to be there, I do wonder if like certain choices you made with their faction quest line is going to play a factor here in this expansion. we'll see in due time, but we really do have some pretty great information here in a preview from Fextra Life, where they got a first look at Starfield Shattered Space. Now, many other outlets did. I've read a decent amount of them. I know Kotaku got a look at it. I think Eurogamer did one. All of them are pretty scarce on details, but I thought Fextra Life had a lot packed in there that other outlets were not mentioning at all. So I wanted to share this one and break down some of the new information here. So let's go ahead and take a read. They say, during this year's Gamescom, we had the opportunity to attend a presentation for Starfield's expansion Shattered Space. I want to share everything we learned about the upcoming expansion, which has me quite interested to see how things will go. We will go into the story of the expansion, the release date of September 30th, and the new vehicle added to the base game designed to improve exploration. The DLC promises to be an engaging continuation of the Starfield universe, with the new vehicle offering players a smoother way to traverse its landscapes, which we just talked about the vehicle in our 1-year retrospective. The journey kicks off in an abandoned space station, leading players to the Varun homeworld, Varun Kai, where they'll uncover a catastrophic event with far-reaching consequences. Unlike the positive and optimistic tone of the base game, this narrative takes a darker, more complex turn. One thing that's been consistently brought up about the Shattered Space previews, although it's not mentioned in this one in particular, is there is more of a horror tone to Starfield. And you do see a little bit of that in particular main story missions. Like, they kind of toy around with it a little bit. In fact, one of my favorite missions in the main story is that moment where you're kind of, we'll just say, flipping between two places. And I thought that was excellent. And I thought the way they kind of played with time there was also really cool. So to know that they might be going in that direction more so leads me to be very interested in what else Shattered Space can pull off, especially because Bethesda is defining it as more dark. I wouldn't say Starfield was overly optimistic. Like, honestly, the universe is kind of screwed in a lot of ways in Starfield, especially because, like, war has polluted the early years of this game's timeline, and you can kind of experience the aftermath of that, where everyone's very much fragmented, doing their own thing in their own galaxies. And I don't know if that would necessarily be optimistic to me. Continuing on here, they say, it was reiterated over and over that Shattered Space is all about delivering a complete and focused experience centered around Dazra. Lamb pointed out that the expansion captures the classic Bethesda vibe, where everything you need to get lost in the story is right there in this carefully crafted world. With new weapons, gear, and items, the expansion also brings fresh gameplay elements that they hope may even change how you think about Starfield. I want to point out, because I just feel like after covering them for so long, I know Bethesda Game Studios so well, that the way they continue to emphasize Shattered Space being this complete, focused approach obviously is a direct response to the critiques the game has received, and this will create excitement for Shattered Space by answering said critiques. But at the same time, I do feel like, because they're talking about this specifically being the focus, that the next one they do, the next big expansion, may be a little more broad, we'll say. That's the feeling I'm starting to get, and that's, again, because of what happened with Fallout 4, where we got Far Harbor, and I was like, perfect, more of that, please. And they give us Nuka World, which was devoid of all of the choice that Far Harbor had packed into it. So we'll see what happens. But they mention here, one of the standout features of Shattered Space is the introduction of a new enemy, the Vortex Horror. This creature comes from another dimension, crossing over into our world with powers that make it a formidable challenge, especially for lower level players. It aims to add a real sense of danger to the expansion, and I love this description here. They say these things looked real creepy, and I want to think they may end up giving that Deathclaw feel, which I never really considered the Starfield equivalent of a Deathclaw. I guess the Terramorphs were kind of terrifying in their own way, but really that was captured in the narrative more so than the actual creature itself. But having a actual horrific sci-fi Deathclaw level creature, imagine it chasing you through a space station or something like that, would be really, really awesome. That in mind, though, I really hope Bethesda chooses to release this kind of theater presentation, if you will, to the public, because when you look at it, right now, as I'm posting this, we're 21 days away from Shattered Space, and I feel like we need to see more. It's good they're talking about it. We did get, I think, a really good trailer when it was first announced, but I thought we'd see something a little closer to the release of the expansion. There's still time, so I hope they just take this theater expansion and do put it out for the general audience, because I think a lot of people are still convinced Shattered Space is just going to be more Starfield, and Bethesda really does need to amplify the message of, no, this is more of what you want from our games typically, and that it's answering that bell, because I think that will restore a little bit of faith for the game. So I do hope they utilize this theater presentation to a more broader degree, because I think just making it for journalists to go and talk about it instead of actually showing it doesn't breed confidence for a lot of people, especially those who are very much down on the game. Continuing on here, they say, in general, I feel like Bethesda seems to be channeling the same atmosphere that fans of games like Fallout love, with Dazra being a mysterious, dark, and harsh environment. This isn't the hopeful exploration you find in the rest of Starfield. Instead, it's a deep space narrative exploring how the Va'ruun have survived outside the settled systems. And as I've talked about a lot, for those of you who are getting into Starfield or you want to be prepped for Shattered Space, spend time with your girl Andreja. Like, so important to spend time with her because she is 100% going to be the heartbeat of this storyline here. There's just so much that's left to be unpacked with her as a character still, and I think a lot of it's going to be done here in this expansion. But there's also just a ton to unpack with the main story itself, where they do explore like this abandoned House Va'ruun embassy at one point, and you're trying to understand where they all went. It's one of the game's greatest mysteries. It makes perfect sense as a first expansion, but for those of you who want to get the most out of the narrative, I do highly recommend talk with Andreja and at least get to that point in the main story. I think Starfield's main story is really good. I know not everyone agrees with that, but I really enjoyed it a lot. Even as someone who enjoys movies like Interstellar, and I know there's a lot of similarities there, I think it's still really good stuff. And I do recommend people play it through because that's what has me the most excited beyond the exploration, is seeing how they're going to explore that narrative more. And that is as someone who did generally enjoy Starfield's narrative across the board outside of the... I'm actually forgetting the name of the faction right now because it was kind of unimpressive. It was the Freestar Collective. I had to look it up. Yeah, Freestar Collective really wasn't it, in my opinion. But yeah, spend some time building that mystery of House Va'ruun for yourself if you're kind of diving into Starfield late. Or if you're still not sold on Starfield, wait for reviews for Shattered Space. I don't know if they're going to do early access for Shattered Space just because it is DLC. And one of the few times I got DLC early for review was Shadow of the Erd Tree, but it is pretty rare the way it's delivered because it's more supplemental content, so I'm not quite sure how that'll be handled either. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to deliver this here Shattered Space news, this big update. Get your thoughts on it down below. Does anything that is shared here build a little bit of excitement for you, or does it feel a little too late in an already busy time of the year? Let me know down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves. I look forward to reading what you have to say down below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.